G'day everybody, welcome back to another Power Rankings video on the channel. Every 5 weeks we like to come on and have a discuss about each team in the competition and rank them accordingly with how they are faring with their form. So pretty busy last few rounds. We've had some big upsets, we've had some big changes in form, dips and ebbs and flows. It's been some very good football, but there has been, as expected, some shite footy at the same time. So a few upsets we had this round, so a bit of changes if you do your Power Rankings each and every week, but we like to do them at the end of every 5 weeks. So let's get into it, shall we? Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy. And we'll begin with 18th West Coast Eagles. I know I'll be getting a couple of tomatoes thrown at me as we speak, but I just have to still put them in 18th given they are still entrenched at the bottom spot. But what a win it was against the Saints, and they were due to really come out and show a really energetic and passionate performance. Their pressure outdid the Saints. Brady Hough moved into the midfield a few weeks ago and arguably had his career best game today. Ryan Marrick's moving to defence looking like a good one, confident and using the ball fairly well. Harley Reid as well, really impressed and probably had one of his better games of the season. So it's good to see they're getting a bit more from those younger players as of late. Ryan's having one of his better seasons. You'd say Jamie Cripps has been fairly solid week in, week out as well. They were due for a performance like that, the Eagles, given the amount of losses they have accumulated, but you still got to have them at the bottom of the table. In 17th now, it was a massive playing game today between the Tigers and North Melbourne, and given Richmond lost the game and the Kangas have still had the better form as of late. They've lost a few games, but they've been oh so close against some good sides. Gonna go the Tigers here in 17th, and the gulf still between their best and worst football is pretty substantial. They'll have phases throughout games with their pressures right on top, and even early today it was outstanding from the majority of the game. But against the Hawks, for example, where they just never really got going, they started well against the Demons a few weeks back, but really had a massive drop off in intensity. That has been a bit of the issue, but let's remember, still one of the more younger and inexperienced teams in the competition. And at the same time, they still have looked fairly decent to watch. Like, they really bring the heat and energy when they're up and about, and a few of those youngsters have been impressive. Sam Lawler, feel like he's chipping away really nicely with the limited pre-season. Tom Sims is coming to the side, competing well up forward too. Tom Brown's been in good form. Trainer's been impressive as well. So there's a lot to like with the Tigers, but given that loss to North Melbourne, I just have to put them that one bit below and have them in 17th. And then given, I've just pretty much said it, in 16th it has to be North Melbourne, who have looked impressive. Their last few games they have dropped, but finally got the win over the Tigers. But the draw to the Brisbane Lions, they lost closely against Port Adelaide, and also that close loss where they did come roaring home against Essendon. That was the same against Port Adelaide as well. They just have lacked a bit of that composure in late moments to probably win those games. Same could be said against Brisbane, even though they got on top of the game in the third quarter. But they've just got a lot more from their midfield. You look at all those close losses and the draw they had, their midfield has gained ascendancy in important moments. Tristan Cherry's form has been outstanding as of late, being huge in those stoppages, basically grabbing out of the ruck every time and just wanting to whack it forward. Defensively starting to hold up a little bit better, I guess you can say. Combin's been in good form and Pink was outstanding today. So you can now start to see the upside a little bit with North Melbourne. They had some close losses. They finally got the win they probably needed to gain a bit more of morale in the playing group, and let's see how they go the next few weeks, but still in the bottom 3 for me in 16th. 15th here, it feels rough given this side on paper still looks very good, but their confidence is shot at the moment. It just has to be Port Adelaide, just mentally and physically shot, and they did get killed by injuries yesterday, to be fair, with a handful of players like Josh Sin and Horn Francis going down with soft tissue problems. So the personal issues are starting to pile up a little bit. Kane Farrell's had surgery as well, but they just haven't looked like the Port Adelaide we all know and love when they're up and about. A really hard-nosed side. They've looked extremely soft throughout phases of games, leaking a lot of goals defensively too. They were expected to have a bounce back against the Crows, and they just were very wasteful with their inside 50 deliveries. So just look like all over the shop. And as I said before, still a really solid side on paper, so it's hard to see them below a few sides like Melbourne and St Kilda and Essendon, but they just have to be there because their worst football has looked deplorable, almost like a Sydney Grand Final-esque. I just have to stitch myself up there saying that, but it is true. Got to have them at 15th. 14th now, this one feels a little bit reactionary, but I'm going to be putting Essendon here. I just have to put them a few spots lower with that loss against the Western Bulldogs. It's been interesting. I've heard some people say that's what we expected, but geez, a 90-point loss against the Western Bulldogs, where their form was looking fairly decent. Granted, they were soft kills, but they are one of the more younger teams in the competition, Essendon, and it felt like they gained some confidence with those closer wins, granted, against some poor opposition, but were really good against the Swans in that first half. They controlled the ball well, they looked slick, and defensively they were holding up fairly well. Reed's been in some outstanding form. They're controlling it well with how they move the pill, but it just all came crashing down against the Western Bulldogs. One of their worst performances in quite some time. Looked nowhere near it, and it was back to the same old Essendon where they just couldn't get the ball out of the back half. They had unforced errors. So because of that, and the percentage is fairly low compared to a few teams below them on the ladder, I have to put them at 14th in my opinion. Then in 13th, I do have the Saints here. They are actually sitting in 13th on the live ladder at the moment. Their last 5, they've only won the one game, and that was against Fremantle, where they just got back to their ground level dominance. They've been really good in that area the first 5 or 6 rounds or so, but geez, they have really dropped off a little bit, where their intensity's been poor, and that just was the absolute main issue against the West Coast Eagles. They looked absolutely nowhere near it. Their ball skills, poor. Intensity, poor. Missed tackles galore, just a shocker. But as we did say, coming into this season, they are a fairly young side, and I just felt like there'd be some ebbs and flows in their game a bit this year. They'd show some solid performances, but some horrid ones. In their recent form, not looking great. Dropped 4 out of their last 5. But given the Saints this year, they've looked so inconsistent, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and knock off the Suns next week. But for now, going to have them in 13th. In 12th position now, I've got to put the Melbourne Footy Club a few spots high here in 12th position. I feel like even before that win against the Brisbane Lions, they've been travelling okay. Now, yes, they have won some games against some weaker opposition like Richmond, for example, and the Eagles. But what I've noticed since their first win against the Dockers is they're playing with a lot more confidence. They're controlling the ball better with how they move it. That high uncontested possession style. And their midfield, all of their last 5 wins, they've won the contested possession count. They've won the clearance battle too. So getting a lot more from those midfielders, unlike their first 5 or 6 rounds, first 5 or 6 odd games from the season. So the gulf between then to now, looking a lot more confident. The loss against the Hawks really sticks out like a sore thumb, but they pissed that away. They really should have led at halftime, dominating them, and they were awful with the goal kicking, sort of like 2023 Melbourne-esque. But what a win it was against the Brisbane Lions today. I thought their pressure in their front half game very damaging. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 been an absolute game changer for them. Petrarca, he's been under the radar, I feel a little bit. Just been plugging away so nicely, and 𝐷𝐿's been huge in key moments in a few of their wins. So, yeah, I'm going to be putting them in 12th, given their position is 14th. I feel like they are going under the radar a little bit. At 11th place here, I do have the Sydney Swans. They've just been all over the shop a little bit this year. Still are one of the teams in the comp that has been crucified with some personnel issues. Yeah, the win over the Blues that they really needed. Feel like they get up for those Martin Group games, but just watching them play, it's evident that grand final loss has affected the squad in some way, mentally and physically. Not looking as sharp, not looking as connected as last year. Having games this year where their efficiency is poor, their goal kicking can be ordinary, their long bombs inside 50 can be very predictable. The absence of Gordon is hurting. And they have quarters where their pressure just totally goes to sleep. Leaking goals a little bit defensively as well. And as I said, their ball skills have let them down from time to time. But 2 of their last 5 are when they oh so needed against the Blues, where a few of their stars like Heaney and Warner got back to their best. Feel like there is a little bit of upside with the Swans. They're only a game outside the 8, even though their worst has looked absolutely poor. See how they go the next few weeks. They could potentially get in some form, but yeah, geez, they've been oh so consistent a bit this year. I'll still have them in 11th. And in 10th here, I'm going to be going with the Carlton Football Club. Now, yes, I know they did lose against the Swans. You probably should have the Swans above the Blues, but looking at the last 5 weeks, I've looked a bit more stable than the Swans, I guess you can say. Sydney have had some poor patches of games, and look, the Blues has still had some really disappointing fourth quarters, and that has been one of the issues this year. I think 5 out of their 6 games they've lost leading at halftime. A terrible stat there, but they are top 4 in the competition for points against. So defensively, they're holding up fairly well as of late. Wearing's been a brick wall. I think he's a shoo-in at the moment for the All-Australian squad. Jack Silvani's still heavily underappreciated. One of the comeback players of the year, no doubt. New role in defence. Just intercepting beast and looking really reliable back there. He's been key to their defensive setup. Haynes has been awesome too after a shocking start to this season. So yeah, there are some good signs of the Blues. Still, those second half fade-outs have been quite a bit of an issue. But look, they did beat the Cats a few weeks ago. Defensive masterclass against the Saints as well. And they were in a winnable position against the Swans. And they actually are, I think, one of the best pressure teams in the comp, the Blues. But they let it slip in that 4th term as they did lose to the Swans. But yeah, 4-6 record, 106.9%. They're still hovering around the mark for finals. In 9th place here, going to be going with the GWS Giants. They have fallen off a cliff a little bit these last few weeks. They look like a locked for a top 4 side, but yeah, the last 5 weeks, the midfield probably one of the more concerning points. They're linking way too many inside 50s. They're struggling to lock the ball in the forward half enough. Jesse Hogan has saved their bacon a little bit at times. He kicked 7 goals to get the win over the Cats. When the ball's going contest to contest, they just haven't been good enough in those areas to get the ball forward enough and lock it in. And it was evident with their loss against the Dockers just how they moved the ball with pace. They were unable to keep up with them. Skill errors as well. Been a big letdown as well. They've had some nice change through the middle of the park, and then they just have an overuse of a handball or a poor turnover here or there. So yeah, they are in a bit of strife, I feel like, the Giants. Last 5 games, have only won the 1. Still sit in the top 8, though, given their dominant start of the season, but could be perhaps a few alarm bells ringing with how they've been playing as of late. Got them in 9th. Then in the top 8, we begin with the Fremantle Dockers here. A very inconsistent side this season, but certainly a morale-boosting win it was against the Giants as of late, and that does put them above GWS, no doubt, with the power rankings. When they are on, they look like such a damaging ball-moving side. And when they take corridor and move it with some pace and get the handball receives going, geez, they look good. And Jackson is a solo ruck. Surely that persists with him, because when he's been the solo ruck, just how he grabs out of the ruck and his follow-up work, probably the best, one of the best follow-up work ruckmen in the competition, looks outstanding. Brayshaw's been outstanding this year as well, probably a lock for the All-Australian. Strong's been getting tagged a bit here and there, but his inside game's been fairly good. When they're on, they look like a great side, but still they are having some inconsistencies here and there. Their inside 50 use was poorer with their loss against the Pies, and then just one of their worst performances in years. Just a head-scratcher. Outlier performance probably against the Saints. So they've had some losses this year where they look a bit timid with their ball movement and gone into their shells a bit, but when they really get their confidence perked up, geez, they look like a good side being able to move it from the back half. So yeah, the Dockers just got what they needed with that win against the Giants, and yeah, it feels like there could be a bit of upside with this side given the talent there's just everywhere across the park when you look at Fremantle. So got them in 8th. In 7th place here, I'm going to be going with the Adelaide Crows. It's a big logjam at the moment on the live ladder when you look at 4th between 8th with a few of these sides, but I'm going with the Crows here. Just feel like the Cats, the Dogs, the Hawks have been going a little bit better than them in comparison to Adelaide, but the last 5 games looking fairly healthy. 3 wins, 2 losses. That one against the Dockers, fairly ill-disciplined in the midfield, didn't stand up, and look, no shame losing against the Pies. They were in a winnable position throughout most of the game. I think they've just lost the 1 game at home this year, and that was against the Cats when they were leading by 30 points odds. So that is probably one of their biggest positives this season. They are looking like a bit of a fortress at home this year. And when they play their good brand of football, geez, their turnover game, their ball movement from the back half, those numbers sitting in the top 4 of the competition look damaging in those areas. Dawson the last few weeks has really lifted and kicked a lot better. Their 3 tools continue to be the X factor in their campaign, even though Walker did get subbed against the Pies. It was because of the weather, but yeah, Phil Thorpe was probably one of their better players in their win in the showdown. 𝐓𝐴𝐺𝐷𝐾 converting his chances fairly well. Defensively, they still have been a little bit shaky here or there, but look, led by Worrell and 𝐬𝐴𝐿, still young players. Worrell's been outstanding when he's been able to intercept the ball. Probably lacking a bit of a quality distributor as well as of late, with Miller being up and down a wee bit, but overall their turnover game, their intensity at home, and just how they can move it from the back half's been one of their pros. And yeah, just a high-octane forward line. That's always what you got to watch out with the Crows, and sitting fairly comfortably in 6th position, so I'll have them in 7th. Moving on to 6th place here, I'm going to be going with the Hawthorn Football Clubs, currently sitting in the top 4 with a 7-3 record, so the record looking really healthy as of late, but the last few wins have been against some weaker opposition, a few soft kills against the West Coast Eagles and Richmond, and then recently losing against the Suns makes me bump them down a wee bit to 6th place on the power rankings. Midfield just wasn't good enough for full 4 quarters. They did respond with 5 of the last 6 goals, I think it was in the 3rd quarter, to lead at 3-quarter time by 3 points. But yeah, just fade out of that game. Not much shame though losing to the Suns up in Queensland. The key position plays have been really interesting to look at. I feel like Barras is doing his job well, the new recruit, but then Sicily forward the ball, behind the ball, a lot of unforced errors he's making, a few misses at goals, and still overall they are lacking that consistent enough key forward to the ball. Chol can be a little bit hit and miss, and to be fair, just came back in, and Gunston was rested, to be fair. But overall they are a quality side, and when the ball exits the congestion, they are a really good ground level team. In the top 4 at the moment, their link-up play can be very damaging when they're all on the same wavelength. Look, sitting in 4th place, I have them at 6th place, so in my power rankings. Moving on to 5th, I do have the Geelong Football Club here. It feels like they're going a lot better than what their ladder position suggests. They're currently sitting in 7th place. It's because they've had a few losses here or there, but they've had a fairly tough draw. Look at their last 5 games. So a close win against the Hawks, lost against the Blues, where it's a bit of a bogey side for them, and that's the same with the Giants, but got the win against the Pies, where, geez, they were really good in critical moments, and a big win against Port Adelaide. They're purring at the moment. Don't think there's really a dominant area with the Cats. They just look good in many areas of their game. They're linking up well forward or centre. Their turnover game's looking great. Yeah, goal kicking let them down against the Giants again. They probably should have won. One thing to observe the Cats, it feels like their bottom 6 or so plays have let them down in a few performances as of late. Stengel's been a little bit quiet here or there. Same with Ollie Henry as well. But there has been some players that just continue to impress. Ollie Dempsey, one of the more damaging wingmen, I feel, this season. Tom Atkins been under the radar this season. And Bailey Smith, I think he has to be in Brownlow conversations. He gets tagged by Bergman, but just his running power is too good. And using it really nicely by foot. So they're sitting in a good position here, the Cats. They might be not in the top 4 at the moment, but they are looking like a top 4 side. So I've got them at 5th. Just feel like there's still a few sides a little bit better than them. 4th place, gonna have to put one of the sharp risers in the competition of the Western Bulldogs here. How good have they been? One of the more damaging midfield units as of late. I think they are one of the top teams in the competition with points from stoppage. Bontempelli back in the side just has shown no rust whatsoever. Ed Richards, I think Champion Data is saying he's the #1 player in the competition, and geez, is his disposal looking great as well. Liberatore having a Adam Treloar-esque season from last year. He's really gone to another level too. English quietly having a good year as well. So all of their stars are just been playing some solid football in 4 of the ball. They're looking connected. Riley West had a big game on the weekend. Their pressure they're showing game in, game out. Their intensity, it's through the roof. And not much shame dropping that game against the Suns. Just the one loss from their last 5 games. So given their form, I just have to put the Dogs in the top 4 here. Really good quality side at the minutes. And geez, they're looking really fun to watch as well with how they are playing. Playing with some confidence. Got them in 4th. In 3rd place here, going to be going with the Gold Coast Suns. Outstanding they are looking this season. 7-2 record. Damien Hardwick, you can see now that he is starting to implement the way they want to play their forward half game. Looking brilliant. Their pressure as well. When the ball hits ground level, they just hunt and win it back in really dangerous areas. Ben Long's been outstanding this season. His ability to win it at ground level and use it nicely, get a goal assist or get a snag here or there. He was one of the better players against the Hawks as well. Turnover game, one of the top 4 teams in the competition with points off turnover this season too. And looking a lot more stable defensively, where they've known to be a little bit hit and miss in that area as of the last few seasons. Ballard's been a big out, but geez, Mac Andrew, his output hasn't been as good, but he just has to play that role as a key defender. But Collins has been solid. Love watching Ewell play, barely beaten one-on-one. Anderson's been solid in there. Wetz has been good with his hit-out work. Still a young side as well, the Suns, so do they drop off? Who knows? But geez, they are playing some good football, so gonna have to put them in the top 3 here in 3rd place. Into the top 2 now. In 2nd, I'm still going to be putting the Brisbane Lions here. I know they did have a bit of a shock loss against the Demons early today, and they did draw as well against North Melbourne. They've only got a percentage of 110, and that's a lot worse than a few of the teams below them. But I just still have them here because on paper they are one of the better sides in the competition. Maybe give it another week. If they'd lose to the Hawks, let's say, and you have maybe the Dogs beat the Cats, I feel like then you'd start to put them down. Overall, when you watch them play, they just look like one of the more connected teams in the competition. So yeah, the last 2 weeks does say perhaps put them a little bit lower, but some teams have had some ebbs and flows this year with their form, and I still think overall Brisbane a really strong team, so have them in 2nd place here. And that leaves the #1 team in the competition, the Collingwood Football Club. Geez, they've looked good this season. Could they go for another stab at the premiership? You'd think so. I think in 2023 they were more of a damaging side with how they move the ball, but this year it's more of what they're doing behind the ball. Even with their outs, they've been able to get it done. They had Darcy Moore go down early in the season. They picked up a win. They had some players getting rest against the Dockers, and with limited entries, they killed the Dockers off the turnover. And again, defensively against the Crows, geez, they look good. With no Darcy Moore, Jeremy Howe really stood up. He's quietly having a fantastic year. Their system looks great, even with some fairly ordinary and average looking players on paper. They just all play their part so well. They link up nicely when they do have possession, and just the handballing game, one of the more damaging teams in the competition when they do move it quickly by hand. As I say in my tipping videos too, in just key moments of games, they know when to get it done, and they get lifts from their midfielders as well, like Crisp and Pendlebury, and especially Dacos. The oldest team in the competition, but geez, they are one of the highest chemistry sides in the competition at the same time. The culture and the system, they're just looking really good at the minute. The Pies sitting comfortably on top of the table, and so is the same with my power rankings with them in first. So overall, they are my power rankings at the end of round 10 for this AFL season. What are your rankings? Let me know down below in the comments. Would you change a few things? It's just a massive logjam at the moment. When you look at the ladder between 4th and 8th, you got a few teams competing for that top 4 spot, and then when you look a bit lower, a lot of teams still competing for top 8. Logjam at the moment, but those are my power rankings at the end of round 10. Thanks for tuning in, lads. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy. Always enjoyable to chat about the footy, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.